with the Steven Universe podcast and a focus on Steven's best friend, Connie. Grace Rolek, who voices Connie, and Zach Callison, the voice of Steven, are both here to give us a closer look at Connie and Steven's friendship and what's been happening with them recently on the show. And we managed to grab a few minutes with Connie herself to talk about school, Stevani, and why she cut her hair. But before we get to Grace, Zach, and Connie, I'm sitting here with Rebecca Sugar and Ian JQ to talk about Connie's design and character development. Thank you guys so much for coming back.
Yay!
Ah, yeah, great to be here.
Yeah, so we're going to be talking about Connie and also some of the other humans of
Cool.
Beach City and just the show in general.
The boardies.
Yes, of course.
Nobody calls them that. We call them that, and then I think like the fans started calling them townies, which is just so wrong to me.
We've said boardies.
Yeah, we said boardies in the show
once.
so we thought it would catch on. Remember, Mayor Dewey's like the boardies, and Steven's like boardies.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Wait, when's that?
That's in political power.
Yeah. Well,
anyway.
Yeah. So Connie is obviously an instrumental character, especially later seasons. How early was she a part of the development?
Pilot.
Yeah, she was super early.
All the way back.
Yeah.
There are drawings of her in my original sketchbook.
In the pilot style?
Yeah.
Ah, that's neat. What role was, like, were you guys planning on her being, coming and fighting with the gems eventually? Like, joining their...
We had a bunch of different humans that were gonna be, like... We had different plans for them. Like, we had ones that were just friends. We had people who... Like, we had characters that were just sort of on the outside of the gems, and those sort of became, like, say, like, Petey, or, like those kind of characters. We had characters who were interested in the gems that kind of eventually became, like, Ronaldo. Like,
right.
You know,
yeah, we had lots of different ones that kind of all distilled
into different
one character, like, got all those properties.
And then we had characters that had closer relationships with the gems. And yeah, that kind of became Connie.
Yeah.
Connie's role.
I think Connie, in the earliest sketches, was always going to be a foil for Steven. To the point where, like, their faces are designed to fit together like two puzzle pieces.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, Steven's face sticks out at the bottom and hers sticks out at the top, and the two of them together, create like a complete picture. So, like, the ways in which she's really reasonable and sort of pragmatic and almost like, how do I describe it? Like, Steven is really whimsical.
Yeah.
a whimsical person. Connie is not like that.
Yeah.
But she's sort of fascinated by that.
And
she's
kind of
very literal.
Yeah, and they're kind of inverted because Steven lives this magical reality, but he craves mundane things. And then Connie lives in a mundane reality and she craves magical things.
Yeah.
So, like, they were always kind of designed as to be like foils for each other.
Yeah, they each have the thing that the other lacks. So
Yeah.
together.
Grass is greener.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They make the ultimate person. Connie.
Yeah.
True. Was that the purpose behind the shield and sword thing too?
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. I remember, we came up with the sword thing, like, super early on. That's what that episode line to the movie was all about.
Was giving Connie
giving Connie the sword. And yeah, it's not a coincidence that the first time you see the sword is during a Connie episode.
So we see a lot of Connie interacting with Steven, obviously, but we don't get to see as much of Connie interacting with the gems and her relationships with each of them individually. How would you characterize, like, their relationships?
Each of their relationship with Connie?
Yeah, like Garnet and Amethyst, and we see more with Pearl, but...
I think when one of the earliest times you see them all together is when the gems warp in and they're all posing.
Yeah.
Which that was a Jeff joke that I just love. I think early on
it basically encapsulated everything.
Yeah. Early on, they want to do a good job, like,
they want to look cool in
helping
front of,
Steven have a friend.
They want to look cool in front of Steven.
They don't want to mess it up. Yeah, they want to make it seem like Steven has a cool life. And they want to be impressive. I think generally, towards a lot of humans, they want people to have the sense that they're, like, a positive force in their world, but they're not super great at conveying that because socially they're not exactly on the pulse. So
but I think that they know that Steven that Connie is Steven's really close friend, so they're kind of
evolved
like
a lot since then.
They kind of take they treat Connie better than they would treat any other human.
Well, she's become a full-on member of the team.
Yeah.
Once she started training, she's just been
she's part of their support squad. So
yeah, and
they kind of see her as it's almost like junior.
She helps
member.
them. They need her. Yeah,
and they know how important she is because they know about Stevani and how cool they are and how helpful they are to the team. So
yeah, I think they're very supportive of basically Steven and Connie's relationship and Connie in general. I think everything has really changed a lot since Connie was upfront with her parents about the fact that she was doing this, and I think the Gems are also at this point in pretty close communication with Connie's parents. A lot of this you don't necessarily see because everything's from Steven's point of view, but we try to show bits and pieces of it.
Yeah, it's implied.
Yeah, it on the side that they're all sort of in communication.
It's like kind of one of those things where it's like if
Gem Hunt has a lot of that.
Oh yeah, Gem Hunt.
Yeah, because Prill's really coordinating with Connie's mother at this point.
Yeah. And it's like those actual like conversations between Pearl and Priyanka, like those would probably be pretty boring to show on the show.
Well, I think it could be interesting.
It's important to know that it's going on.
It's going on.
I think the other thing with Garnet and Connie, and this is something that we show a lot in Mindful, but I think Garnet is really at the point where she's respecting, Steven and Connie and Stevani each as their own person.
Yeah.
And on in a really mature way. And that's new. It's like not even about being protective anymore. It's like Garnet needs to pass to them the kind of skills she needs on the day-to-day to just get by, because she considers them like mature enough to understand and handle that. And that's very different than them like posing on the warp pad as like, Steven's cool.
Steven's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I still love that gag though.
Yeah.
That one takes a rewatch to fully appreciate. There's been a lot of other changes too in like just with the boardies, like you said. Mayor Dewey, Sadie, and Lars is in space now. What made you guys decide to shake everything up for this latest run?
I know a lot of that stuff has just been a long time coming. This is like stuff that has been planned really early
so
on.
long ago.
I mean, like for instance, Sadie, like as far back as Sadie's song, we had been thinking about like Sadie wants to make changes in her life, but she can't. What's going to cause that to happen? And then as we've been finding like Sadie go on this journey, which is just about figuring out herself, making new friends, and then like what does she do when she doesn't have someone to rely on to stick her in the rut that she's in.
Yeah, I think she spent a long time kind of believing that people weren't interested in being friends with her.
Yeah.
And I think that like Lars was there too. I think that was sort of a big part of their dynamic, was kind of believing that they only really had each other and both being a little discontent about that.
Yeah.
Not discontent, I think, Sadie... Well, I don't know. It's not that they were discontent about that. They were each discontent with themselves. And I think there's a big sort of like, I don't want to be in a club that would have me as a member thing about their relationship through a lot of that was like, well, this person will hang out with me because they like are in the same boat as me, where like other people like won't hang out with us. But neither, it's not true for either of them.
No.
I think even in the earliest, this is something Lamar really established, is that like the cool kids like genuinely like Lars.
Yeah.
And he just doesn't believe it, and Sadie won't even try.
Yeah, they think Lars is really cool, but Lars just like he trips over himself because he's so in his own way, and he can't believe that someone like Buck could like him. I mean,
all of these things, I think, go all the way back. The stuff with Lars coming back to life goes all the way back,
early.
And the Sadie stuff, I think, was definitely going to happen because Sadie, they are very based off of sort of like my college experiences. And at a certain point in college, I joined a band.
Yeah.
And a lot of Sadie's band stuff is sort of based off of this band.
Yeah.
And in the band, they called me Rebecca Murder.
Yeah.
Which is really only funny if you know that that's not my name. My name is like...
That's where Sadie Killer comes
That I have a really non-threatening name. Yeah. So, Sadie Killer is sort of based off of that. And I think similarly... Well, a lot of stuff is based off that band. Actually, all the stuff about the barn is based off that band.
Yeah.
Because after I left the band to do animation, they all moved to make art in a barn. Which I just thought about endlessly. Just like, oh wow, it's just like
that sounds crazy.
Go off and make art and music in a barn.
And then like Mayor Dewey, I remember that was planned pretty early on. I remember we had the idea of like
Dewey and
Nanafwa.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, we always
knew that Nanafwa was going to take over.
She would be a way better mayor.
Yeah. That's why we would always set up like when there was like the townspeople kind of rabbling as like Nanafwa being like one of the main people.
Yeah. Nanafwa's always been super important because she's based off of your grandma.
Yes, that's true. Yeah. And so we always knew we were going to do something. Actually, speaking of the boardies, because I'm a boardie, I show up like
everyone's been putting you in really
it's like ever since I left the show now I show up in Beach City a lot. But what's really funny about that is because I was gonna be a boardie originally, right?
Yes.
Remember?
You were gonna be. Well, the pizza family was once just you.
There was
a pizza man. And it was just you. I think his name was something.
I can't remember.
Everett or something. I cheated it so it wasn't your name.
Yeah.
But then that just became, instead of you, it became like a bunch of members of your family.
A bunch of members of my family. But it was going to be like, what was it? It was going to be like Everett would drive around town. He had like a scooter or something.
No, you're thinking of Baby.
Oh no, yeah. That's
there was also but there was a character that was called
Baby,
who would drive around on a motorcycle. And he was like Tuxedo Mask, except instead of throwing roses, he'd throw big cans of soda.
That's right.
And sort of startle everybody.
Yeah.
Anyway, that went away. That's really early. There's a lot of stuff.
There's a lot of stuff that didn't go in. Yeah.
Yeah, there was Baby.
Yeah.
People turned into other things.
Yeah, exactly.
And then that pizza man turned into that whole family.
Yeah, the pizza man became a family. Baby is the one who I think kind of turned into the Fry family a little bit. And, because he was like interested in the gems, remember?
Sort of. But he was he considered himself, I guess maybe Ronaldo's like that. He considered himself an action hero.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, Ronaldo's an amalgam of a lot of different characters, but also Ronaldo's Ben and Matt.
It's just Ben and Matt, yeah. It's true.
It's yeah.
They definitely have an affinity. They wrote that book, right?
Yeah.
I don't remember what it's called.
It's so good.
I love that book.
Weird.
That's a precious item.
It's amazing.
I've endorsed.
I mean, if you're like a fan of the show and you haven't read that book, you're doing yourself a disservice because it's so funny.
I haven't read that book. I'm gonna do it now.
Oh man,
it's really sweet. It's just so them.
I mean, it's in the voice of the character, and it actually sort of is like a nice way to talk about the show.
They were keeping the blog the whole time, and we would time it so that it would pop on right when these things happened on East Coast time
on the episode,
because it's still Marva.
Yeah,
man, we were.
Yeah, we made so many. We made up so many things. There were so many extra canon things that you would get from the blog that actually became things in the show.
Did Koala Princess
started on the blog.
And that's like transcended.
Yeah.
into your.
I know. Yeah.
Wait, is that a secret?
No, it's fine. Don't worry about it.
That's really cool. I could read. I feel like I want to know more about this baby, and all these characters. They sound amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thank you guys so much for coming on and talking to me again.
Absolutely.
And coming up, Grace Rolek, who voices Connie, and Zach Callison, the voice of Steven Universe, share their thoughts on their characters' relationship, Connie's friendship with the gems, and the recent episode Kevin Party. Alright, today I am here with Grace Rolek and Zach Callison, the voice of Connie and Steven on Steven Universe. How are you guys doing today?
Pretty good.
Very swell.
Awesome. Thank you for coming in again. So today we're talking about Connie. And there's been a lot going on with Connie in the past however many episodes, dating back to the whole debacle with Homeworld and everything that happened between Steven and Connie. So
something happened? What?
No, I mean, nothing happened. They just separated, you know?
Right.
They had their falling out.
Oh, yeah, that whole thing.
Yeah, that. What? On top of that, there've been a lot of changes to the show, and that, you know, Dewey lost the election, Sadie quit her job, Lapis left Earth. So, like, what are your thoughts on all of that as a viewer and as an actor?
I think it kind of signifies a shift that's sort of happening in the story right now. We're definitely... I think a lot of cartoons in general have a very static... all the characters, like, they have their job, they have what they're doing. It's like there's not a lot of changing happening. And I think that it's really awesome in Steven Universe right now because they're at the Big Donut. Things are really getting shaken up.
All shook up.
But yeah, I think I'm excited to see where things go with the residents of Beach City.
The world will never be the same. It's definitely on a path of change. You know, even though Steven and Connie have worked out their issues, we have a whole murder mystery going on, and there's a lot going on that it's hard to go back to, you know, just the normal life of Beach City after everybody's seen all these things.
Right. Yeah, it's not just like... If it was a real town, of course the residents would be really concerned. I mean, a bunch of residents got kidnapped, and of course you're going to blame the mayor and be like, how could you let this happen under your watch? And it's like, it's
like actual repercussions to, which is something
to the
you don't
magical,
normally...
mystical mayhem.
Yeah, exactly.
City.
I just thought, it just occurred to me that, like, the first scene of the first episode of Steven is in the Big Donut. So it's like, it is really crazy that Sadie quit. It's just like, it's shook.
Yes.
Everything's changing.
I'm shook.
The world is turned upside down.
Truly. So how do you bring authenticity to these kind of, like, these shakeups and all this stuff? Can you relate?
I mean, I don't really treat it any differently than any other episode, really. I feel like I think the more life experience that I've had just as a person, I mean, I started working on Steven Universe when I was 15, and now I'm 20, and in those 5 years, I've lived a lot of life. I mean, not a lot, because 5 years in the grand scheme of things is not that long, but a lot of personal growth has happened and experiences that have taught me a lot, and so I find that I have more rapport with certain things as I continue acting in things, and I can take emotion. For example, the interpersonal drama between Steven and Connie. I've gone through breakups before now, and I can use a little bit of that. Like, how does that hurt you? Like, are you being your most rational self when your feelings are hurt? No, not necessarily.
I specifically remember when we were recording the Kevin's Party thing. I don't think we did it together that day.
No, I don't think so.
It was just me and Rebecca doing the scene, and there was a line in there or something, I don't remember what it was, but like something struck like way too much of a nerve, and it like reminded me of this like breakup or something from my past, and I was like, whoa, that hit like really close to home. Like a lot of things in Steven Universe, you know, draw emotion from me, but it was this one thing finally like hit on a personal note from my history. I was like, whoa, like this show really does like get everyone at some point.
Right. And
it makes it easier to live in it.
Right, and it's a testament to the writing, because good writing makes it so much easier as an actor, because if it's something you could actually hear yourself say in the real world, it's a lot easier to connect with it on a deep personal level, and you don't have to force these emotions to sound authentic, because when you say them, it feels natural to imbue them with whatever you're feeling when you're saying them.
Right, and I feel like the crew really draws on personal experience too to like give it that sense of weight and like the feeling that it's actually real, despite all the, you know, wacky magic mayhem.
Artists have to draw from their own personal experience, whether it's, you know, the good or the bad or the ugly. That's all of our work is an amalgamation of that.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have any rapport with having a best friend with magical powers or learning how to sword fight against intergalactic beings, but I know what it's like to feel like you're going to lose a friend, and that is something that's very raw and real and easy for me to put into the circumstances that are happening in the show. And, or for example, like, I don't know what it feels like to feel like I might die fighting a gem monster, but I've been scared before, so...
What's the difference?
Yeah, exactly.
I do have experience with both of those things.
Oh, okay.
It really doesn't aid your performance that much once you've lived it.
Oh, yeah, I know. The
It's
being up against a gem monster.
It's an NaN, a no acting necessary.
Incredible. So...
Very method.
Yeah. It just sort of happened that way.
There's a moment that really struck me when Steven first meets up with Connie in these episodes and sort of brushes off the whole thing that happens on Homeworld as no big deal. And it felt like it wasn't... it's not normally... it's not like Steven normally, just because he's always... he's very insightful and can read people pretty well. So it felt weird. Do you guys think that was... him? Do you think he was genuinely confused by Connie, or do you think that he was just sort of trying to suppress it?
I'll delegate that question over to you a little bit more.
I think it's one part yes and no. I mean, he subconsciously yes, but these are new feelings for both of them. They've never had to deal with something like this, and Steven is always the one generally that's going off and leaving everyone behind. In these situations, and I don't know that he necessarily understands her perspective on things until they talk it out. So I mean, obviously, it wasn't anything to intentionally mislead or to get away from her, but more just a misunderstanding. It was all just a miscommunication, which happens between the best of friends.
Right.
I feel like Connie was just terrified that she was never going to see Steven again, and there was this pact that they had to fight alongside each other, and even if that wasn't really realistic in the circumstances of Steven being taken to Homeworld, there is still that expectation, and when you're as young as the characters of Steven and Connie, there's so much... Your emotions are on overload because you're just trying to make sense of what is happening. And even if it wasn't having to do with an intergalactic war and politics between humans and gems and all of that, it would still suck and just what if Steven was just going to another school or something?
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But
when I was 14, anything bad that happened was the end of the world.
Right.
In this case, it could literally be the end of the world.
Right. So how
when you magnify it by that?
So I think when Steven gets back and he's just like, well, aren't you happy that I'm here? It's just kind of this sort of whiplash where she's like, wait, no, you don't understand how hard this has been for me, not knowing what was up in the meantime. So it's a tense little situation, but I think Connie's just confused and is hurt.
Right.
But
follow-up questions on teenage emotions. Isn't it nice to be able to say, when I was a teenager...
Oh, that is the best feeling. Except now I just have normal angst. It's not... I can't
pawn it off on that.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, well, I'm just a teenager. These feelings are just teen angst. I'm like, it's adult
just my
angst.
personality.
That's just a part of...
I'm just edgy.
Being in the internet generation.
Right, yeah.
We're 2 weeks apart. She's 2 weeks older than I am, so we both just turned 20.
Yeah. Congrats. Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So another thing that stuck out to me in this run of episodes was on Gemcation, when Steven was embarrassed to tell the other gems about his fight with Connie. Because he thought that they would side with her, which first of all, it's such a testament to the bond that Connie has with all the gems and with Greg, which makes my heart
so wholesome.
Grow. Yeah, that they think that he thinks that they would he's their son, so but it was definitely something we haven't seen from him before, because he's normally so honest about his emotions. If he's upset, he's like, I just need someone to talk to,
Yeah.
It was very different. What did you think about that?
I mean, he's seen, especially Pearl and Connie, but all the gems and Connie develop this bond over time, and, you know, it didn't occur to him when he first got back that he might have done something wrong, and then, but something is wrong between them, and he can't quite figure out what it is, and he feels like he might be responsible because he's that kind of person, to take it upon himself, and he feels like if he did something wrong, then, you know, the gems are going to take her side because she's sort of part of the family now. And maybe he felt the need to be a little more coy about it. For him, it's a confusing time because he just went through all this crazy stuff, and he's getting back and he's dealing with, you know, drama on a much smaller scale, but it affects his life equally, really, because these are the people that have been with him from the beginning. So it's a little messier now that everyone's involved versus just the four of us at the beginning.
Right. It would have been a much easier solution to just go off to Homeworld and never have to deal with the problem, like...
never come back?
Yeah. There's drama, you know? Like
that is the darkest timeline.
Alternative
Steven
universe.
joins the Diamond Authority.
AU, yeah, exactly.
It definitely exists.
Oh, totally.
So do you remember the time, like the exact moment when you found out that Connie had gotten her hair cut off? Because that's like the biggest thing.
When I was recording Kevin Party, I remember... I didn't get told, like, beforehand, but when you do see her and Lion in the storyboards, I was like, wait, is her hair tied back? And Rebecca's like, no, she got a haircut. We, like, redesigned her hair. And I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, it's kind of a cliche, but it does have a lot of truth to it, where you kind of go through some relationship drama and your instinct is like, I'm going to do something crazy and different with my hair, because it's kind of a symbol of like shaking off a past part of your life. And it's kind of, when you cut off your hair, it's kind of like cutting off a sort of burden or a part of you that you're ready to let go of. And when you do see Connie at Kevin's party, she's socializing with a bunch of people and just chatting, and she looks so at home. And I mean, even though we find out later that she is really crushed by not talking to Steven, she has come so far from the beginning of the show, where she was too scared of what the line in Bubble Buddy. She's like, I feel like I'm going to die without ever making a single friend.
Right.
And then seasons later, you see her chatting with a bunch of cool people at a party. I mean,
with a dope haircut.
Yeah, exactly. And so with a lion
Pulling up to
the club, like, this is me and my lion, lion valet.
This is my lion, Rory.
But I think for her character, even though it's not so much that she was letting Steven go, it was the part of her that felt like she needed... I don't want to say that Connie doesn't need Steven, because I feel like they have such a great friendship at the core of it, but I think it's really important for Connie and her personal growth to still be confident without feeling like she's maybe worthy of love and attention because she has a magical best friend. She definitely has discovered her own personal power, and I think now that they made up at the party, there might be a healthier dynamic there.
You brought up Kevin Party. I wanted to say I remembered what it was that I related to personally from that episode, and it was when Kevin was giving like Steven like bad advice on how to deal with the split between him and Connie. Because I had someone in my life that, like, after breakup gave me all this advice, and I thought it was great, and then, like, not long after that, I was like, that person has no idea what they're talking about.
Never take relationship advice from a Kevin.
Yeah, from a Kevin. Can we make that?
How to spot a Kevin.
There's already a Kevin meme on Reddit.
There's plenty. You know.
For someone that is, like exceedingly dumb in a way that they, like, mess up things around them. I feel like Kevin's just more like jerkish.
Yeah, when Kevin Party aired and I watched it, it was really funny because there was a part of me where I started to feel bad for Kevin in a way.
Right.
Which, I mean, up until that point, I think he was very clearly an unsympathetic character. But I think there were certain parts in Kevin Party when he was giving this bad advice to Steven, you're like, oh, you really don't know what you're doing.
There was a hint that he had a ex or something. He was like, oh, end up just like I think the name was Sabina. Like
Yeah,
he was
that
like,
was the one.
yeah. And he'll be like, and then Steven's like, what does that mean? And he's like,
Yeah, that's
like-
the beauty of this show. Like, give depth to even Kevin.
Yeah.
it's great.
Even Kevin deserves some humanity.
Not as big of a jerk as he could have been.
Yeah. Still a jerk.
Yeah. There's something.
Maybe
There's a
Kevin will have
backstory
a
there.
redemption arc over the
He's the
course
next
of the show.
Paradox.
I love that. Kevin needs to sing. He needs a song.
The new Crystal Gems. Kevin and the Cool Kids.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, guys, thank you so much for coming and talking to me.
Yeah, this was a blast.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Again, thanks for having us.
So we just heard what Grace Rolek thinks of Connie's new haircut, but what does Connie think about it? We'll ask her coming up. All right, I am sitting here with Connie Maheshwaran. Thank you so much for joining me today.
What's up?
Yeah. So first question is from Hector, who asks, what do you want to be when you grow up?
Oh, I have no idea. I mean, right now, my favorite subject in school is science, so I'd love to do something with that. I think learning and investigating the world is super interesting. Maybe I could study gems for a living.
Right, yeah. I think that's a science. I think that falls under the category. That's definitely a thing that exists. Okay, next question is from Gina, who wants to ask, would you consider going on another adventure with the Crystal Temps from that one time you went out with Lapis and Peridot and Pumpkin?
I'd love to. I just hope they don't make me imitate Steven again.
Right.
That was kind of weird.
Yeah.
If we could just be all of our own people while we're doing an adventure, that'd be fun.
Another question from Brett is asking, what's it like to be in a fusion?
It's super weird, but it's awesome. I mean, it's crazy. I get to share a mind with Steven.
Yeah?
Yeah, it's like half of me is controlling half a brain and half a body, but at the same time, it's just one person.
Is it like divided down the middle? Like, do you have the right arm and then...
I guess. I mean, I'm left-handed, so...
Oh, okay. Well...
So it'd be the left arm.
Okay, understandable. A question from Daniel asks, why did you cut your hair? Which, by the way, looks amazing.
Oh, thank you so much. I think I just needed a change, you know? Mm-hmm. I feel like I'm growing up, and I've had this long hair for a really long time, and I just kind of wanted to assert a new side of my personality, you know?
Right. It's an image change. I like it. You gotta shake things up.
Exactly. I mean, I've had this long hair for a while now, and I think short hair, it's a cute, chic new look.
Last question I have is from Maya, who wants to ask, what kind of podcast would you make if you had a podcast?
I would love to have a podcast because I just love to talk about all sorts of things that interest me. It would be really cool if maybe Steven and I could get together and we could just talk about all sorts of things, or maybe we could interview the gems and interview people about things, or, I'd love to talk about all sorts of issues in the world today, you know? That I love to talk about the real stuff.
Current events.
Current events.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're not shying away from the...
Right. And also pop culture, too. I think books, television, movies, analyzing it all. It would be really interesting.
That sounds like an amazing podcast.
Thank you. I mean, I certainly love talking to you.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. Well, thank you so much for coming on and talking to me, Connie.
Thank you. It was great talking to you, too.
The Steven Universe podcast is produced by Stacey Para, Charles Abadje, and Conrad Montgomery. Special thanks to Rob Sorcher, Cartoon Network Studios, The Crooniverse, and Turner Studios in Atlanta. Join me next Thursday as we spotlight Lapis Lazuli, who we last saw leaving Earth. Will she be back? Is that the end of her story? Rebecca Sugar and Ian Jones-Quartey will tackle those tough questions. So subscribe to the Steven Universe podcast now at Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts. And please leave us a 5-star rating and review while you're there. I'm McKenzie Atwood, and I'll see you next Thursday.